Okay, 7th grade, here is your video for finding the percent of a number, and I did a couple of examples with fractions in them, so you just would remember how to do that. So on this first one, I want you to think about the fact that you first need to change your 3/4 into a decimal, and then we'll change the whole percent into a decimal. Many of you know that 3/4 is 0.75, so 5 3/4 would become 5.75%. And again, you know, if you're not sure, you're going to take 3/4 and divide it in bottom into top. Okay, so it would look like that. So that would be 7, and then that would be 5. And so we'd take that and put it after the 5 like we did right here. But that's still a percent. We're not done with changing it into the decimal we need to change it into so we can multiply. So now we need to take our decimal and we're going to move it 2 places to the left. So moving it over 2 right here means we need to add a 0 in this empty space. So 5 3/4% is the same as 0.0575 as a decimal. And then the of is the same thing as multiplication, and then our 300. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the 300, I'm going to put it under my 575, I'll put the 3 here, drop off the zeros like that, and then I'm going to multiply. I'll deal with my decimals when I'm done multiplying. And so I'll put those 2 zeros down here. 3 times 5 is 15, 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 is 22. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 is 16, 17. And then we look to see how many numbers come after a decimal, and there are 4. So we're going to start right here, and we're going to move over 4 places. 1, 2, 3, 4, and put it there. So that equals 17.25. Because remember, you can drop off any zeros that are at the very end of a decimal like that. So 5 3/4% of 300 is 17.25. So let's look at the next example. It's another one with a fraction, just to make sure you guys have got that down. 25.5%. And you guys know that half as a decimal is 0.5, so this is the same thing as saying 25.5%. Remember, we're still in percent form. So now we need to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So I'm going to move it this way and put it right there. So 25.5% is the same as 0.255. And then the of means times, so we're going to be saying that times 50. So this time I'll put the 50 under the 0.255. I always put the one that has the fewer digits that aren't zeros, and so since 50 only has 1 digit that's not a 0, I put it on the bottom. Saves you from having to do rows. So multiply, bring down that 0, and then 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 5 is 25 again, plus 2 is 27. And then 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 is 12. And then we look to see how many numbers come after a decimal, and this time there are just 3. So I'm going to move it over 3 times, 1, 2, 3, and put it there between the 12 and the 7, or the 2 and the 7. So that equals 12.75, and I can drop off that last 0 right there. Moving on to the last example, this is just a basic one, 32% of 78. I first made my percent a decimal, and so I'm just going to move it 2 places to the left, and so it's 0.32, and so I'm just going to write times 78, put my 78 underneath there. And I'm just going to multiply. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 1 is 25. That's 0. 7 times 2 is 14. And then 7 times 3 is 21, plus 1 is 22. Then I will add. I'm going to move it up a little bit. And I get 6, 9, 4, 2. And then I look to see how many numbers come after a decimal. And there are 2. So I'm going to come into my answer and move it over 2 places to right there, and so that equals 24.96, and that is the answer. So you're probably going to have a lot that have a decimal in the answer, and that's perfectly fine. If you have any questions or you get stuck on any of them, just let me know. I'll be happy to help. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.